Good afternoon, everyone. Hope you are well. My name is Michael. Thank you again for joining another week of inspiration. We've got a fantastic talk for you today with Steve Benjamin. We have a lot of epic photographs to get through. A lot of them are with birds, but I must warn you, as Steve is a phenomenal underwater photographer, we also have many shots of the underwater world as well. We've got another great chat for you next week with Dr. Otto Whitehead. He's a good friend of myself and Steve's, and he did his PhD on penguins in Marion Island, and he's traveled all over the world. So we'd love for you to join us on his expeditions from sub-Antarctic to the Cederberg, and it's surely going to be a great talk. So let's see if I can get Steve online now. Steve, can you hear us okay?
Yeah, I can hear you perfectly.
How are you doing today?
I'm good. Thanks for having me. It's an absolute pleasure to be here. So nice to chat to you, Mike. Oh, wow. Look at that.
I thought I'd be cheeky and put a photograph of you in your wetsuit, because most people will know you in your underwater life, which is actually there. That's you in the elements, isn't it?
That is, hey, it's been a long time since that's happened, but yeah, that was certainly one of my highlights, filming whales right here off Cape Town, feeding, I haven't worn a blue wetsuit in quite a while, so nice to see the photo, thanks.
So during lockdown, where's your home, Steve? Where were you kind of confined to for the last few weeks?
Yeah, so guys, I live in Cork Bay, here in Cape Town. It's a nice I live in a very small double-story house up on the firebreak, with fynbos and mountains behind me. That's Trappies Cork. It's my now daily walk. Get the dogs out, go onto the mountains and enjoy it. And I just love living in that area between the mountains and the ocean where we have beaches. And so my house, in particular, is up against the firebreak in the top right of that picture, and that is where I spent my lockdown. Very, very gratefully and very lucky.
So Steve, this is you without your wetsuit on. Is this your garden in the background? Is that the fire break behind you?
That is the fire break behind me. And yeah, so what this leads us onto is, what I spent most of my time doing during the lockdown. And it was really focused around the birds in my garden. Mike, it really started out because I was trying to, they're so beautiful that I've always wanted to spend time focusing on taking photos of them, but I never had the opportunity. So I was thinking of a positive way to do something proactive and productive. And I got really inventive, as you can see that from my disassembled underwater housing that I took apart, used my underwater strobes and lights and my clamps and my strobe arms to make a rig that I could try get some beautiful lighting onto these incredibly beautiful birds, just to try highlight them as much as possible. Yeah, it worked. It worked really well.
So yeah, what was the plan, Steve? Did you sort of want why did you want to take photos of birds differently? Because we've all seen beautiful shots of birds on a tree or in our garden. Were you trying to almost make a studio type of image? Explain to us
yes.
Why you wanted to do something differently.
Okay, so no, you're absolutely right. So many people take amazing photos of sunbirds, and it's very easy. They're attractive. They come into your gardens. They come to a close range. But I wanted to, I've seen what everyone else has done, and I want to try to think of something different. And what I have to my advantage is I have these extra lights and this equipment around me, and I wanted to try use that to create something simple. I didn't want a busy background. I needed a clean, flat background. And I wanted to separate the birds out and show them just for their individuality without any other elements. And so that's what I wanted to do, was to really spend time creating. And this is a very involved process. Like in this photo, there's a protea there, but I'm doing micro tweaks all the time with the lights and, just trying to get the framing perfect. So it was like a really deep dive into a creative process where I had control of the elements, and the birds were the highlights of the show and really played along, luckily.
And how did you get them to come there? Were you using a bird feeder to get them to come to your garden? Had it been there for many months? I mean, how did you get these birds before we go on to all your epic bird images? How
Okay.
did you get them there?
Yes. Yeah, so that's a normal bird feeder, same as most people have in their garden. It's just got plain white sugar, no additives to it, no brown sugar, no red food coloring. I don't have a problem with bees in my garden, but a lot of people say that bees come continuously to their bird feeder. So some people like to put like a little bit of mesh over the feeder. And these birds have, you put it up once a week, or it's been there for months basically. And these birds are long lived, so they are, as a resident, they've definitely lived here longer than I have. And something like a 8-gram southern double-collared sunbird is, it might be 6 or 8 years old. They know what's going on. So they're pretty habituated. They relaxed around feeding. And the interesting thing was, this was just before the main flowering season of the aloes. So a lot of the birds were taking advantage of this, temporary food source, while some other natural food sources were still coming to fruition, I guess you would call it that. And these birds really are built, they're resident, they don't migrate, and they really do take advantage of seasonal flowerings of all the feignboa species around here. So it's not like feeding your sunbirds is going to do anything bad to them. If you stop feeding them, they're just going to move on to another patch of vegetation and carry on feeding. So they were doing well in my garden. Oh, but there's even more story to this though. This is my pillowcase. I cut up my pillowcase to try create a white background, because I'd taken many shots of black backgrounds, which I'm sure we'll get to, but I wanted to try and mix it up. This sort of worked. It was sort of a failure, but it was hell of entertaining. So I definitely spent 3 days on this, just working the pillow sheets in the background.
So Steve, did you try different backgrounds, and what worked the best? And was it quite tricky getting different flowers or branches as well? So can you tell us a bit about the background, and then the different sort of props or to try and make it seem as natural as possible?
Yes, of course. So I learned quite early on that, you'll see later on, like I have a very bushy background that creates natural shadows. And in the morning, the light just creates a very black background naturally. So I'm achieving that with a very high shutter speed and bright lights on the birds. And that was where the bulk of my best photography came from. In this case, this is just shooting against the sky. And I took this shot just to show the setup. And I started out just by taking branches. I wanted like very dark colorations in the branches because I didn't want them to be a highlight. I wanted the focus on the birds. And then I slowly moved on to different flower variations. So like this strelitzia, then we did aloes and a whole range of other flowers as they became available in my garden. And the birds took an interest to them directly. We got some natural feeding going on as well occasionally. But it was like, it took a week or two to move from highlighting the birds to adding color and then working the elements to try get some results. Basically, these things take a long time. Yeah.
So who was this who came to visit?
So this is very early on. This is a lovely Cape White-eye. We have a family of 6 of them that live here. This one would always puff up its feathers in particular. Whenever this guy landed, he was the fattest of the bunch. There was another one that has a stumpy leg, and there was some more aggressive individuals. So this, you see on the bird in the foreground has got an injured left leg that he's doing really well on. It looks like he's lost his 3 front toes. But I can tell you what, he was not less dominant or disabled by that ability. He was aggressive and feeding very well. Here he is again with one of his buddies. So what I love about white-eyes is they're so common and everyone knows them very well, but not many people really get to look at the details on these incredibly beautiful birds. And also you'll notice that white eye ring is formed by feathers, very delicate, tiny little feathers. And other birds with white eye rings, like the Cape bulbul, that is made with like a fleshy growth. So similar effect, but different tactic that these birds have done. I love these birds. And never giving up, eh? Like they push each other away. They definitely don't like to share. if there's someone that's in the way of that feeder, they are all over it as quick as they can.
Steve, was this shot straight against sort of the bushes in the background? It wasn't like you had a big black sheet in the background, because it looks really, really incredible.
Yeah, thanks. So this was made just with natural shadows. So, I mean, I did think about putting a big piece of velvet or something in the background, but I didn't want to obscure the bird's ability to come to the feeder. And also, I would need quite a large, I didn't have a piece, to be honest, and I wasn't allowed to go to the shops. So I had to think of a different way. So in the morning, it's naturally black. So this is a Cape Sparrow, so another super common bird, but I'd never taken photos or seen photos close up, showing all the details in an interesting way. And I always like showing birds, as individuals, but also in interesting positions. And he just looks like he's peering at me and thinking, and he's, a lot of people don't identify this, and this is probably one of the most common birds around. But yeah, but back to that black background, it's the shadows in the early morning using lights.
And Steve,
okay.
I mean, did it take you ages to get each of these shots? I know lockdown was a long time, but was it a project that just went on for weeks and weeks, and you just got better and better at it, and then started changing the different perches and the flowers and tweaking things?
Yeah, so the first week, like everyone else, I was settling into lockdown and I was thinking about what to do. And then I probably spent the next 4 weeks just focusing for the first 2 weeks, most of the day, and then the second 2 weeks, most of the mornings, photographing the birds. And I sort of worked out a technique that worked, which was keeping my lights really close to the birds. But my lights are underwater video lights, so they also overheat. So I have to stop every sort of 10 or 15 minutes and cool them down and go back. And then obviously the perch choices were super important, because so just for a moment, if you just go back for one moment, because that photo was really a really special moment, because I had set this perch up specifically for the sunbirds, because I wanted the curvature of the branch to match the curvature of the beak, which I didn't get. But I never expected that a male Cape sugarbird would land on it and gently rest its tail on the branch. Because normally you see shots where the tail is straight down, and it's very hard to get a landscape shot of a bird that is more naturally portrait orientated. Plus, the sunshine is reflecting off the feathers, because if the sunshine didn't do that, those feathers would be lost to the black in the background. So there are so many elements that only happened once in that month that allowed for this photo to become a reality. So
it's incredible.
This is one of my favorite ones.
It's really, really beautiful. And I love the yellow right in the background. Just, it's beautiful.
Yeah. So the male malachites are the ultimate species. They're just so vibrant, and the colors are so incredible. I worked super hard to get a good photo of a malachite, and this is okay. I like it a lot. It's striking. But you'll see another one hopefully a little bit later on. But these guys were not that common. So the orange-breasted sunbird was a lot more common. And Mike, this guy's super unique. You only find him in the fynbos in the Western Cape, a little bit in the Eastern Cape. He's a real big tick for anyone who wants to see a unique endemic sunbird. They're really small. I think they weigh like 9 grams. So you can imagine that's sort of 2 heaped teaspoons of sugar, and he'll drink that much in sugar per day if he needs to. And they're on the feeder at my house. Okay.
I just wanted to ask, that shot that we saw you sort of leaning out of your window, it's not like you had your tripod set up and you were super close. It seems like you were just leaning out of your corner window and snapping with a 200mm lens. Is that correct?
That is pretty much correct. I mean, I have tripods, but it doesn't work for this kind of photography, because there's so many micro adjustments that you're making all the time to try and get a shot of a bird on a perch. If you're fixed in one location, you have no ability to adjust to the moment. So that's what I'm doing all the time, refocusing, shifting, checking my lights, and then waiting for something like this to happen where it all comes together in a moment. And in this shot, you'll see the curvature of the beak sort of mimics the curvature of the branch, which is something that isn't obvious at first, but there's symmetry in this photo. Besides the fact that the bird's staring right at you and you got beautiful light on it, and it's just lifted its feathers, because orange-breasted sunbirds do a very strange sort of threatening display to each other when they're aggressive between males, and they puff up their heads, but just their heads, which makes them look really weird. And you can see here, there's little gaps between the feathers on his head as he's lowered those feathers down, which gives it a very unique sort of scaly, but very beautiful full feeling. And one thing I saw is that the sunshine makes these birds like absolutely glow. There's no ways I could recreate that with artificial lights. So I've used the lights to backlight them and to just to lighten the shadows. But it's the sunshine that these birds really sort of come to life under.
And were you always trying to get two on the branch? How did you do this?
Yeah, I was working towards that goal. You know, in photography, multiple species interacting is something that's so hard to get, and especially in a sort of in a good symmetry. So I was up around my garden, I was looking for new perches, and I thought to myself, imagine if I can get two birds to come close. I better give them, you know, the ability to do that. So I chose this Y-shaped perch in the hopes that I could get a bird in the middle, or you know, some sort of symmetry happening. But when this young male malachite landed and tried to push the orange-breasted sunbird out, I couldn't believe it. And you got this heart shape between the bills and the branch. It's just incredible. So that one really, really struck a chord with so many viewers. And I was posting on Facebook as I was going, and you know, keeping the enthusiasm in everyone's lives, trying to show people, you know, what I was doing in my garden. It became the cover of the newspaper, so that was incredible. I couldn't believe it.
Is that when people really started going, wow, Steve, was that the image that started getting people to take note of what you were doing while everyone was locked up?
Yeah, I think that was one of the big ones. When I took that photo, I turned to my girlfriend Monique and I said, what? That was incredible. Like, you know, you can't plan those kinds of things. You sort of set them up and hope that something happens, and then the wildlife works around them. But yeah, people really commented and got engaged. And so I think people started seeing their common birds in their garden more than just just common. Like, you can create absolute beauty with things that you have on your doorstep if you take the time. Yeah, obviously moving to a protea was the natural progression. It took me about 2 or 3 weeks until I had covered my bases, and I was like, okay, what is next? I've got 2 birds, I've got black backgrounds, I've got sticks, and to get an orange-breasted sunbird on a protea with a perfectly lit with a black background was a goal. And by this stage, the birds were so used to me, it didn't take long. I presented them with the perch and they jumped on it. But interesting, it was only the sunbirds that sat on top of the protea. The white eyes and the bulbuls, they didn't know what to do. They sat on the branch below. You could see the sunbirds were used to feeding on proteas. Yeah, so this is a southern double-collared sunbird. They're quite aggressive, and this is a male. He's busy calling, so his mouth is open. He's busy trying to chase all the other males away. And they're very common in the garden. They are incredibly beautiful, and their head is it's actually quite dark if you don't light them properly. So they were quite hard to get good photos of, and including the flamboyant strelitzia, I think just brings out so much South Africanness and so much color that I really love this photo.
That's beautiful.
So this is my favorite photo that I took during the whole experience, the whole time. And I knew that aloes are incredibly beautiful, but at the time I was taking these photos, there were none were flowering. So this was the first aloe that I could find, and I put it in place, and I was busy photographing the sunbirds on them, and this malachite landed, and it sat there for maybe 30 seconds. I took as many photos as I could, and yeah, this was a huge highlight of the whole experience.
And Steve, just remind us, do you think that they were only in your garden because the aloes weren't flowering anywhere else? And was this sort of the perfect time, the perfect place? This wouldn't have happened if lockdown had happened a month later.
Yeah, so there's many elements to that. Like, you know, I would never have the time to focus on these birds unless lockdown happened. But it happened at a specific period when there was clearly not enough, there was less opportunities for the birds to feed naturally in the fynbos. But since the aloes all over Cape Town have started flowering, the birds have dispersed. So that the density of birds in my garden, these birds, is way down. So now my feeder is out. I'm still enjoying the birds, but it's the occasional visit. Often with wildlife photography, you need opportunities to keep playing and experimenting. So you know, it's better if you have continuous interactions. So it was like a feeding frenzy some days around the feeder, just because, you know, there were limited opportunities for birds to feed naturally around.
Are they still in your garden at the moment?
Now there are a few. Yeah, the residents are around, but not as much as before. It's really changed since the aloes have flowered. This was also an incredible moment. So this is a juvenile malachite sunbird. He's busy transitioning into his full plumage. He's looking a bit scrappy. You can see his very brown coloration, and the lights bring out those sort of blues and emeralds as this bird lands. And this particular bird didn't really like to land on this. This is the wild ducker. Didn't really like it, so it would land and then fly away. And it probably did it twice. And I was just very lucky with a high shutter speed and a continuous burst mode to get that motion and try to freeze those wings. So it worked because of the symmetry of the wings. I love it. It's, once off capture that you just can't be repeated.
No, it's an incredible shot. Steve, I wanted to ask you, why are you sharing, before we get on to the next shot here, why are you sharing all your tips and tricks? A lot of photographers sort of hold everything close to their chest, and filmmakers are the same. But you've been very, very open with sharing what you're doing, how you're doing it. Why?
Yeah, well, I think, well, for me, social media is not about showing how great my photos or anyone's photos are. Often I feel it's, you get better engagement and people take away more from it if they can learn something for themselves. I also know that no matter, I could tell, as I'm doing now, I'm showing you how to do this, but everyone's going to have different situations in their garden, different equipment, different perspectives on photography, and they're going to create something uniquely themselves. So I don't like to keep things super locked up. I enjoy the engagement and the process as much as the final result. That for me is really the adventure. And life is not about having one great idea. Like, I've got a lot of great ideas all the time, and I'm working on all different projects all over the show. So it's, and reaching out and talking and engaging helps me be more creative. And I enjoy that as much as the final product. So I love sharing this stuff. It's great. And I love hearing people's feedback of what they've managed to create and what they've done for themselves.
Don't stop. Please don't stop. So this image, Steve, you can actually see the darker background because we weren't able to see that before. So that's your bougainvillea, or I can't see what type of bush that is behind you. And that's what's giving it that black background in each of your shots. Yeah,
so that's what's creating the black background. There's no cloth. But what you're seeing here in front of you is my underwater housing, but the back is removed. So I'm shooting with a Sony a7S II and a normal Canon 70 to 200mm lens with an adapter. So what I was trying to do, which was very experimental, was to create motion blurs. And what that means is that when you have a very slow shutter speed, if something moves in your frame, it gets blurry. But the strobes on the side capture the motion and freeze it, because the flashes are quicker than the shutter speed is open for. If that makes sense to you, Mike, I know you know what I'm talking about. And in the white eye's eye, you can actually see both of my strobes going off. There's two little dots in the eye there. And this was an experiment. It had to be done early in the morning, because to have a very slow shutter speed, which I mean like a 15th of a second or a 20th of a second, you have to have very low light conditions, because otherwise it's blown out if you do it in the middle of the day. Or you need an ND filter. And I didn't have an ND filter at the time. but the birds generally didn't like the flashes, so it was quite hard to get them to work. The white eyes were the only group that didn't care and would hop around. I did it for a day or two, and I was very happy with this result. I mean, I haven't seen too many photos of jumping white eyes with motion blur sitting on a branch, so it worked out well. Yeah, I enjoyed doing this.
Really are characters, these white eyes.
Yeah. The other thing is that to add motion to a still image is incredibly difficult, and I think it's a quest I'm always on, as to how do you cross the next barrier in photography. You have to show people things that don't exist, but you can create, and getting creative with light and motion in an inherently static medium is really, really hard. And so this is just different and unique, I think.
Thanks, Steve. I'm going to let people know that you don't actually move on. You not have a house? Is this where you normally sleep? Just explain.
So this is outside of my patio. We have a porcupine that regularly raids our vegetable garden. So I wanted to see, just to have a break from being stuck inside the house every day, just to see what would happen if I slept outside, and would our friendly local porcupine come and visit me. And he did, absolutely he did. And I set up a little camera trap just away from me that's got a sensor, so if there's any motion, it would trigger. And you can see the porcupine's actually sniffing my camera bag, and I'm awake, but I know that I can't move because I'm going to scare the porcupine. So I had to let that photo just go past me by. But it was incredible to see the quills almost over my head, and just being so close to such a large, Africa's largest rodent, and so charismatic, and so hard to find. And they're around here.
And the trick was butternut, was it?
Porcupine are obsessed with butternut. You can't go wrong. They will do anything for butternut. They will break into your garden and rip your garden apart for a butternut. So be careful. Yeah, so behind my house on the fire break, we have a compost heap where we throw our veggies, and the local family of porcupine loves to come and snack. So I don't know if many of your viewers know, but porcupines mate for life. They have 1 to 3 youngsters, pups, I guess you might call them, and they'll do that once a year. So they give birth to pups with soft quills that go hard quickly, and they look after them, and it's a super intimate, tight family unit. So we can have up to 4 porcupines at night feeding here. And I was trying to get some good video footage. So in this shot, you can see I've set up 2 light sources. I've got one in the bush, one behind the camera, and this is actually a frame grab from a video. But I can tell you what, they didn't like the light. They would walk to the camera and then eat behind it. And if you put the lights too bright, they're very cautious.
Steve, this was all in lockdown. I mean, most people are locked up in flats or in suburbs, but here where you live, you've got this incredible wildlife, porcupine, this variety of birds. So you were never bored during lockdown at all. You didn't even watch TV.
No, I was busy. And I have a schedule. Photograph the sunbirds all day, and then feed the porcupines all night, and then wake up and then repeat. So it was a great focus. There was nothing else to work on. Everything from your computer, and get involved in the wildlife. I have seen some incredible photography coming out during lockdown. And there was a National Geographic photographer that did a whole story on the pigeons that had moved into his apartment. And the photos are incredible. I think lockdown has really given many people a sense of focus to work and be creative. So I tried to do that.
Steve, you're not ordinarily a bird photographer, are you? I mean, your day job is to run a tourist operation. You run Animal Ocean.
Yeah, I mean, birds have been a passion for a long time, but it's really this Animal Ocean seal snorkeling business that keeps me alive. And staying on the water is where my main passion is. I would say birds is second to being on the ocean. But yeah, Animal Ocean it focuses on seal snorkeling. We operate out of Hout Bay. It's an incredible experience. We do trips daily, and we're out there just taking people out snorkeling, no scuba, just enjoying the seals. It's safe, and just to get people out of their homes, out of their countries. We deal with a lot of international guests, and in the water with this, this incredible creature, the Cape fur seal, and swimming around with them. It's just the best. So,
and Steve,
if
during
anyone is
lockdown,
keen,
I mean, since lockdown, you haven't been able to operate at all. So this is normally
no.
how you would make your money and take people out. But since then, everything has stopped, hasn't it?
Yeah, so of course we're waiting for international tourism to open up again, and when it does, we'll have to adapt. We'll have less people on the boat, and a stronger COVID regiment, cleaning. Things will change, but tourism will come back eventually, and then we'll get back to the seals. So I haven't seen the seals in a good long time, but I'm looking forward to going back.
And
So just some shots of.
And since you started, Steve, this is sort of the to-do list, tick list. If you come to Cape Town, I mean, there are not many places in the world where you can swim safely with seals. You can go underwater. Just explain to us how rare this experience is.
Yes, absolutely. So we've been doing it for 11 years now, and there was no one focusing on just seal snorkeling before I came along and saw this opportunity. Also, people love interacting with wildlife, but it's got to be done in an ethical, safe way. And this was an experience that was repeatable. It was very safe. We weren't interfering with any of the seals' behaviors. And I just saw this as a great opportunity for everyone to enjoy. And there aren't many places around the world that is close to a harbor, is safe with no sharks, and has so many seals. I think there's 1 or 2 places in Australia, and I think Tasmania and Galapagos. That's pretty much it. And then Cape Town and Plettenberg Bay, but Plettenberg's got a lot of great white sharks. So I would say Cape Town is the main spot for it.
So I'm just flicking through some of these incredible images you've got of the seals, but it's not just the seals that you see when you're out there.
No, we have a lot of interesting birds that come along. So this is I'm going to say a northern giant petrel. So the giant petrels are often, you can tell them apart by the color of the tip of their bill. The southern, I think, has a green tip, and the northern has the red tip, but it's very faint. But it's a giant petrel. And this bird has come in to scavenge on the youngsters that have drowned. So in November, the females give birth to the pups. Some of them don't make it and get washed off the rocks. And then these birds pull in. And these are mega open ocean scavengers and pirates, if you want to call them, of the open seas. There's more of them probably, on Marion Island and the subantarctic islands. Maybe Otto will speak about them. But we do get the visitors to our shoreline as close in as Dacre Island at Hout Bay, where they come to feed on their pups. Okay, so this is Petey Boy. He's a well-known massive seal. He probably weighs 350 kilos. You can see that the tips of his canines have worn down. He is the king of Dacre Island. And there's one spot underwater where you can go, and he's doing a territorial display to me. He's basically asking me to leave by showing me his teeth and blowing bubbles at me. And he's got a very specific spot. So if I cross that spot by 50 centimeters, he'll come at me and blow bubbles and leave. And I knew this was going to be a great photographic opportunity. So I got that motion blur by using a slow shutter speed. This photo is taken quite late in the evening when the light is really low. And you have to have that eye contact to be able to sort of show his personality and his grumpiness with me, basically. But it's very calculated. I know him very well. Yeah, so this is a youngster. You can see by his black coat that he's a new Cape fur seal. He's probably 5 or 6 months old. He's swimming for the first time, just being very curious. And they swim very differently to the adults. They do this sort of flapping motion. And one thing people always tell me is that they're struck by the size of the Cape fur seal's eyes. And they really do open up to be these huge like saucers underwater. And that's for seeing in very low light conditions. Cape fur seals can dive to like 453 meters. And Mike, that's incredibly deep.
That's insane. And I've been out with you with these little pups. There's a certain time of year where they are in the water and they come right up to you.
Yeah, they come right up to you. So in about March, they're strong enough to leave the island and come and swim with the guests in the kelp forest. And here is probably a subadult male or a youngster, and they're just so curious. And this photo really captures what I feel the Cape fur seal personality underwater is like. They're curious and confrontive and playful, and you can see he's sort of framed in the kelp forest, and you'll notice the chewed off bits of kelp all around him. And the seals really get involved in playing, so they'll grab kelp just like dogs do and throw it around, and just play games with each other. So this little one, or youngster, he's not a baby, is busy ripping the kelp forest apart, and they almost garden. They almost like clear out areas just through their playing, and you can see all the little stubs all around. Yeah, this I like the wrinkles on his muzzle, because you can just see his frustration with that leaf. And here's another one trying to present a leaf to me or pull it away underwater. It's taken me a hell of a long time, probably 10 years of photography, to get sort of character-led intimate shots of Cape fur seals, because they're so overwhelming when you dive with them for the first time. You can see 100 or 200 in one frame, but there's no symmetry and no behavior, or you don't know where to look for the first couple of years. It's just very, very overwhelming. So I'm very happy with some of the photos we've managed to create there.
Is this one just leaping for joy, or is there a shark?
This one is leaping for joy. So, you might think they're leaping for joy, but they're also leaping to practice their skills at surviving in the wild. Obviously, we all know Cape fur seals are predated on by sharks. But this one is just playing in the water. So this is a blue shark, and people don't often know this, but seals are top predators, and they can even eat something as large as a blue shark. And they have been recorded many times feeding on this large species in particular. I think it was Chris Fellows that got photos of them actually eating the blue sharks. Now, I've been out many times, and I've seen Cape fur seals harassing blue sharks, and this is the best sort of interaction photo that I've managed to capture. But seals are top predators. They eat a huge diversity of species. They will take some sharks. This is a pajama shark, endemic to our coastline, found nowhere else in the world. They're also quite big and hardy, but Cape fur seals are super tough, and they will eat them if they get the chance. So interestingly enough, this is the defensive posture of a dark shy shark. So these are smaller than a pajama shark. They might be 40 to 50 centimeters. And this one has taken up the donut position. He's assuming that he can't be swallowed if he's round, basically. If he's long and tubular, like he is if he lies straight, a Cape fur seal will swallow that thing. But these sharks would also have faced predation from red steenbras or like large reef fish. And it makes sense if you're long and thin to become round like a donut. That is awkward for any predator to swallow you. So that's what they're doing there. So
the seals have really turned the tables on the sharks. They do get to eat some of them, not just be eaten.
They do. They have turned the tables. Smaller sharks beware of seals, but big sharks will eat a seal if they can.
Is this their favorite meal apart from fish?
Yeah, this is absolutely one of their favorite meals. It's an octopus. I took this photo in Stillby in the rock pools there. And when I took this photo, I really wanted to try and get the sucker effect. And I just love the symmetry of this. But seals will not pass up an octopus. It's unfortunate though. These guys are so intelligent and so incredible, but they don't live for too long. I think like 2 years might be a long lifespan for an octopus in general. And once they lay their eggs, they don't lay again. They die. They give all their energy to egg laying. And Cape fur seals are super strong in their upper body. And when they do manage to get an octopus, they have to thrash it from side to side just to break pieces apart. Obviously, they don't have any hands to do that. And they don't have any, they don't have any slicing teeth. They got gripping teeth, but not enough to be able to cut an octopus up into pieces. So that's why you see the thrashing on the surface quite often at sea.
And sometimes we get weird and wonderful visitors to our shores, don't we? What's happening here?
We do. Which one? This is still the octopus picture.
Oh, sorry, I've switched over.
There we go. This was an incredible sighting. I'm sure everyone following will appreciate this. This was a king penguin. They are incredibly rare and vagrant to our coastline. And this individual came ashore at Buffels Bay in Cape Point. And when I heard about it on the South African Rare Bird Alert Network, I went right down. And there were lots of people there. And there was a moment when there's an ostrich in the picture. That's one thing we should definitely point out. Ostriches on the beach are rare enough, but to get one walking in front of a king penguin is even harder to do. And when I saw the ostrich walking down the beach, I thought, no way, this is just a moment I have to try, frame, and get ready for. So I ran around all the people, and there was probably like 100 people there, and I don't think anyone else took this particular photo. It worked well enough to show. I don't think two flightless birds from two different parts of the world had ever met like this before on a beach. So that was a cool moment. Yeah, I think twitchers and bird photographers came in from everywhere to come and see this penguin, and it didn't care. It walked up to people and peered into the lenses of quite a few people. Quite quickly on, Sandcob came and moved it. I think a lot of people were quite unhappy with that. But interestingly enough, about 2 weeks later, a different individual arrived, a different king penguin, which was also, I think, moved and released again. And that individual made its second appearance about a month later. So in quite a short time, there was 3 opportunities of seeing a king penguin in the Cape coastline.
Talking about confusing animals, is this probably the most confused animal around? And what are we looking at?
That is definitely one of the most confused animals on our coastline. So guys, this is Buffel. He's a southern elephant seal, and he is busy molting on Fishhook Beach in this photograph. So we think Buffel was actually born in Cape Point. There's photographs of a youngster that was nursing. And our latest theory is that Buffel thinks that Cape Town is his home. And you can see he's got this injured left eye. He's easily recognizable. He's also got this scarring on his chin. He might have come into conflict with another male Cape fur seal, or maybe another elephant seal, I'm not sure. He was tagged by a guy called Steve Kirkman, one of the scientists, so we know his identity. And he's an incredible animal because southern elephant seals are the largest pinniped, the seals, walruses, and fur seals. He's the largest of them all. They might get, I think around 2 or 3 tons. They get massive. He's a male, you can see by the large nose. And they are capable of diving incredible depths. So like he could dive, I think the deepest was 2,388 meters. So that's a phenomenal feat for a creature to do. And that's even deeper recorded than a sperm whale. So it's incredible. You can see he's pushing himself with his back flippers. He's got these huge paddle-like flippers that he moves around in. And he's very cautious in the water. He's large. He likes to throw his weight around, particularly amongst the Cape fur seals. He's got, what would you call it? He's very confused. Displaced aggression might be a different word for it. He is a young male, so he comes ashore at Dacre Island, and he does catch and kill Cape fur seals occasionally. He hasn't been a problem to any of humans, but he does have misplaced affections. Maybe you could call it that. So a few Cape fur seals don't appreciate his presence at the island. There is actually an elephant seal called Solo at Robberg that does, in fact, eat young Cape fur seals. But I've never seen Buffel actually eat a seal before.
Weren't you ever scared getting in the water with him? He looks massive.
He is massive. There's no 2 ways about it. We dived with him a couple times, and he was always exceptionally cautious. I never felt threatened by aggression or displaced sort of attraction or anything weird. Every time I've been in the water with him, he's always looked at me and moved away quite quickly. So in this case, I've come up to take some photos, and he's noticed me, and he's just busy backpedaling. So I think he's as frightened, or no, he's just as startled as I am, but I'm also moving away from him. But he's an incredible creature. We will see him again. He's been with us at Deka Island maybe 4 or 5 years in a row now, and he's molted on Buffels Bay Beach and also Fishhook. So he's a resident. You could see him in Hermanus. I think he has come there before, as well as Paternoster. So he's not just Cape Town. He's sort of Western Cape bound. So if you see him, say hello. He's one of our resident animals around here.
And why does he have such a huge nose? Is that the adaptation to be able to dive that deep?
No, so as far as I'm aware, that's for vocalizations when he's on a beach, sort of competing for space on the beach amongst other males. So they make this big trumpeting noise, and that is the first sort of stage in establishing hierarchy. And they come to blows, like physically bashing and fighting each other after that stage. So the nose is really sort of a male dominance display method that they have there.
And Steve, what's it like being a photographer and living A, in Cape Town, but B, in South Africa, where you have this opportunity to film so many different aggregations of animals and wild animals? It's quite incredible.
Yeah, I mean, we live between two massive currents, the Benguela and the Agulhas. It's this convergence of two ocean bodies with so much abundance of life. The water is generally quite cool, but these are Cape gannets on the sardine run. It's one of those massive migrations that happen every year, and thousands of gannets leave their colonies to go feed. There's so many things, so many large animals, and so many interactions going on our coastline. It's really just hard which one to pick and which one to work on and try get good images of. Gannets are some of my favorite, but they definitely are my favorite birds in the whole world. I mean, they dive from great depths. They plunge to like 15 meters below the ocean to try catch sardines or any fish they can. They have different tactics for each prey species they're after. I've seen them eat 2 or 3 sardines underwater and then still chase their mates and steal fish from someone else. They're between whales, dolphins, and sharks, and they do so well. They're incredible. So yeah, Mike, these are humpback whales, one of the mega creatures we get on our coastline. More and more of them are being seen. And what is so special about humpbacks in particular is that in November, we've started to see super groups. So like feeding aggregations of youngsters. They've been around for a while. Since whales have been protected, their numbers have been increasing. But it's only in the last sort of 5 or 6 years that science has really noticed these massive super groups of humpbacks feeding right here off Langebaan, Saldanha area, but then coming past Cape Town, November, December time. And you can see the krill in this photo. This photo was taken off Noordhoek, and you can see the feeding activity going on there.
And you're able to
we got to film this for net.
You're able to get quite close to them, Steve. Obviously, you're in the water with them, and they're all around you.
Yes, so quite an in-depth, long permitting process to be able to get permission to do this. And we were doing this for Netflix for the series Our Planet, and it was the highlight of the High Seas episodes. We spent 3 years working on this. It took spotter planes and lots of time at sea, and waiting for the water to get clean. And you do get very close, but the goal is never to interfere. And so you got to get close without interfering with the animals or endangering any of the cameramen involved in the situation. But the whales aren't there to hurt you. They are very aware of their surroundings. So just sort of be a fly on the wall. Just stay away and get close and get the shots.
And these aggregations are happening because of the food source. Is that why they're all coming here? Because you can get a few hundred whales in one group, can't you?
Yeah, absolutely. So these are youngsters that are not doing the full migration up to, Gabon and Central Africa on the equator there. They're not sexually mature. They're not involved in that. And they leave Antarctica with the rest of the whales, but then they stop around Saldanha because of the amount of food. And that area, the Cape Columbine upwelling cell, is a hugely productive area. The water is always dirty there because it's so full of food. And the whales, these youngsters, feed there for a few months and then return with the adults as they go back into the Southern Ocean. But yeah, this is driven by the need to eat krill.
Another great shot.
Yeah, it's so incredible to share the whale love with everyone, and another nice little newspaper cover there.
So what makes these humpbacks so special, Steve? I know you've got incredible video images that I've seen, but how different are they to the other whales that you've filmed?
Yeah, they're just so unique, and this behavior is so unique. To have so many whales interacting and aggregating, it doesn't happen anywhere else on the planet. You know, the bubble netting activity that happens in British Columbia is well known and well documented, and that's amongst orchestrated adult whales. But that is nowhere near the volume and number of individuals feeding that we have off Cape Town. So this is really the biggest aggregation that I know about of whales feeding anyway. And to be one of the few people that have ever got in the water with it and seen and filmed it, as from a whale's perspective, is super unique and super. I feel really lucky to have shared that and taken these images and shown them to so many people, because the sequence was featured on Netflix and it's been watched by so many people. So it's really, we've taken a secret part of the lives of whales and shown it to the world.
It's really right on our doorstep, but so few people know about it. Is it too far from the shore that most people would never see it, Steve?
No. If you're driving along Camps Bay, or you hike up Lion's Head, or you take a boat out to Robben Island during November, December, you have a chance of seeing humpbacks. Particularly so many of them. They really do come through, and often if you look on some of the Facebook or NSRI groups or the newspaper, people are alerted and seeing when the aggregations are around. So if you keep an eye out for it during November, December, you'll have a chance at seeing so many whales.
It's really nice seeing the whale in the foreground and some of Cape Town in the background.
Yeah, so that's the Sentinel at Hout Bay, and you can see this just a nice low angle shot of a fluke coming up with the blurry background and mountains, and you can see the barnacles hanging off there. So those are gooseneck barnacles that are sort of parasitizing on the outside of the whale, and each fluke is unique. Each fluke is like your fingerprint. That's how scientists identify whales, from fluke scarring patterns. So this photo I took quite a few years ago, but it's definitely my most popular, most recognizable shot that I've ever taken. And this is a 30-ton animal flying out of the water at my camera. And I only had a 200mm lens, and this was probably shot at 100mm, so it's pretty close. We were in the Transkei at the time on the sardine run, and this particular individual had been doing small breaches for maybe an hour or two, like a very long time. And we were photographing all the angles, and the whale was very comfortable with our presence. But 2 or 3 other boats arrived and disturbed this little group of whales that were busy breaching. And we all put our cameras down, and we had our hot chocolates and our biscuits, and the other boats left, and everything was very calm and nice. And I just remembered, wow, if I was this playful whale and I still wanted to jump, I think I'd probably do it about now. So I lifted my camera and I just got my focus, and I saw the whale dive, and out of the blue, out of nowhere for everyone else, this whale did this, and it leapt into the air and it looks like it's looking at us, and then crashed down again. And it did many breaches after this, but this was the only one that was so unique and just so beautiful. So this is a once in a lifetime capture. And this, I've never taken this photo or anything like it again. And I've done, I think, 10 sardine runs a month and a half at a time. So unrepeatable.
Imagine the power and the energy it must take to launch a 30-ton animal out of the water completely.
And it's mind blowing. Yeah? And you think that one of those flukes is around 5 meters in length. So the scale of what is happening there is just mind blowing. So this was a beautiful white-bellied humpback whale, and it's breaching in front of the 12 Apostles in Cape Town. And this photo was used by the Netflix series as one of their main sort of feature photos to promote the whole series. So I was very privileged to have that happen. And this breaching shot was taken during that filming of that movie, Our Planet. And it's not that often that you see a humpback with a beautiful white belly like this. So this was pretty unique about this individual. It probably did 2 or 3 breaches and then it was done. But it's nice to get a sense of place in a photograph. So to have the mountains and the city in the background makes it special. I wanted to frame that in on purpose.
Did you ever think this image would be one of the main images with Sir David Attenborough speaking in front of it?
No, I mean, I was a bit surprised, but I was very grateful. They used the video footage that my friend Roger Horrocks took, and they used my still photograph that we see here with David Attenborough at a massive global event to raise awareness for the plight of our oceans. And David Attenborough was talking with I think Prince William and Prince Harry at the time. What an honor to have a photo used so big and up there for everyone to see. Very grateful.
It's an incredible shot, Steve. So before we ask people a couple of questions, where do people go? If they want to follow you, is it Animal Ocean Instagram page? Is that the best to sort of track your movements and see all your different images? Would you suggest
Yes.
they sort of daily follow you there?
No, I think, guys, please follow me on Instagram. And I do a lot of stories, a lot of updates and photographs. I love sharing information and chatting to everyone. And then my website is there's more photos and what we do, and get in contact with me there, stephenbenjamin.co.za. But I'd say those are the 2 main ones. So if you want to come seal snorkeling, please visit sealsnorkeling.com, which you saw earlier. Follow me for daily updates on Instagram. And then this is my website, stephenbenjamin.co.za. I'll get back to you as soon as you can. Don't be scared to send me a message. So Mike, before we move on, this photo that you see here is was also used by Netflix, and it was an incredible once-off capture using a fisheye lens, and to have 2 whales, mouth open, feeding. And this was taken off Noordhoek, right here in Cape Town. It was just, I've said it many times, but once in a lifetime and mind-blowing. I seem to have got quite a few photos like that.
I don't know where the time's gone. Just for everyone out there, it was a real struggle to try and select 70 photographs. Steve has got hundreds and hundreds, and I know it was always going to be a struggle to flip through so many in the short span of time. Steve is going to hang around for a couple of questions. I just want to quickly remind you, before I tell you about what's happening this week, I want to just throw in this crazy image I got today from 4th of a martial eagle never seen before in the Fynbos, predating on Cape Graysbok, sent by Giorgio. And I just thought a lot of you guys would really appreciate that, a camera trap, that there are martial eagles flying around the Overberg, which is quite incredible. And then just quickly to remind you again to join us next week to listen to Otto, who's a good friend of Steve's. And he's going to tell us a lot of really, really interesting stories. So if you've got any questions for Steve, I'm going to stop sharing now so we can see each other. And I'm going to try and multitask. Steve, maybe while I see if there are any questions in the chat in the Q&A box, how do you inspire other photographers who live in Cape Town, who live in the city? Most people in lockdown would just stay reading a book or watching TV. How do you stay positive and energetic? And even if your business, your sole income is closed down, that you go out there and you film or you take photos of white eyes or porcupines, or are you just curious and inquisitive? I mean, what would you say to other people?
Geez, no, I think just being proactive and sort of following your passion is really what life's all about, isn't it? I mean, if you're not enjoying yourself and trying to do new things, then, what are you doing? So that's what I try to do as much as possible, really, is, the seal snorkeling came from that, and side projects like the sunbirds and chatting to you, it's all part of this life experience that we're here for. So, I mean, I like to think of ideas and chat to people and try to create something. And sometimes they don't work and sometimes they don't come through. But I think sharing things like this is part of the process. And the creative process of being on the water, I act as a guide a lot of the time, which is what I like to do. So I'll get a lot of people inquiring and asking me, how can I do something? And then I will try and make it happen for them. And just like sharing the sunbird story, it's nice to be part of the creative process for productions and films. And we've created so much stuff like that.
So Steve, what do you do now? Your tourism business is closed down, right? You've got a whole lot of people you employ, your boats can't go out. You're taking these beautiful images of birds, and I'm hoping that you're able to sell a couple of them as screen savers. But how are you staying busy? How are you able to put food on the table? I know you said to me this week you were out swimming in the kelp and you had interactions with baboons eating mollusks on the rocks. But on the rocks, are you always looking for new ideas to create other film opportunities, or what's the plan for the next couple of weeks?
So I mean, the truth is we're running on savings, basically. So we had a great season last year. Our staff are continuing to get paid, and we had a Backer Buddy sort of fundraising event for some of our cleaning staff to be able to give them more. I mean, we're still giving them food and salaries, keeping everyone alive. So at the moment I'm really trying to develop the film side of life, which is including proposals and reaching out to friends that need stock footage or any sort of interesting interactions that want to be filmed. Tourism will come back, so we'll work on that. But in the meantime, the sunbird photography has been interesting. We have sold a few photos, and people can contact me if they need to. We do have a couple phone screensavers and desktop screensavers, so you can find that on the website too. But yeah, really at the moment, it's trying to develop stories. So thinking of ideas and understanding people's needs and trying to match them with wildlife footage. And then while we get ready for tourism to come back.
Thanks, Steve. A lot of the chats are all about your spectacular photography, and thanks. I'm in awe of your work, Steve, and there's a lot of that. I just wanted to thank you for sharing an hour of your time. You're an incredibly inspiring man, and you always seem to be happy and inquisitive. And I know I've been out with you a few times on the boats, in the Transkei, even just looking at the phosphorescence that happens along our coastline. But don't ever stop your enthusiasm, and thank you for inspiring us. And
it's a pleasure.
And stay safe, and urge all of you guys to follow his work and support him. And when your operation opens again, Steve, we'll be there to support you. And just maybe as a final closing, why should people log in next week and follow Otto? Is he a good man?
Otto is incredible. He is the most creative, inventive storyteller you can ever imagine. He puts so much of his passion into everything he does. And he'll tell you stories from Marion Island to the Cedarburg, and those are places that are dear to his heart. So definitely don't miss that. You have to listen to Otto. He's an incredible human being.
Thanks, Steve. Keep well, stay safe, and good luck with everything. And we look forward to seeing your film soon. Thanks, Go well.
Cheers.
Thank you, everyone. Cheers.